The night before everything changed, Emily Carter didn't feel like a soldier. She didn't even feel like a strong person. She felt like someone who had simply run out of exits. The clock in her small room blinked 4:12 a.m. in harsh green light. Outside, the world was still asleep, but Emily had been awake for hours, sitting at the edge of her bed like she was waiting for something she could not name. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear alone, but from the weight of everything she had survived just to reach this moment. Her father's old dog tag lay in her palm. Cold, heavy, familiar. The only thing that still made her feel like she came from somewhere real. "I wish you were here," she whispered into the silence. No answer came. There never was one anymore. A life that broke quietly. Emily's life hadn't collapsed in one moment. It had broken slowly, piece by piece, like glass cracking under invisible pressure. Her father, Sergeant Carter, had been her hero. He was the kind of man who didn't speak much, but when he did, every word felt like it mattered. "You don't have to be fearless," he once told her. "You just have to keep moving when you are afraid." Then one day, he didn't come back. The military called it honorable sacrifice. The world called it service. Emily called it the day everything went silent. After that, her mother stopped laughing, then stopped talking, then stopped caring, and eventually stopped staying. Emily learned early that pain doesn't always explode. Sometimes it just fades you out of your own life. So when she signed up for the U.S. Army, it wasn't for glory. It wasn't for honor. It was because she had nothing left that could break. The bus that felt like a final step. The bus arrived like a moving coffin of uncertainty. Gray seats, cold windows, silent passengers pretending they weren't terrified. Emily stepped in last. The air inside smelled like sweat, metal, and anxiety. Every seat was filled with recruits who all believed they were prepared for something, though none of them truly were. A guy near the middle leaned back and looked at her. "You look too quiet for this place," he said with a half-smile. Emily didn't respond. Not because she was trying to be strong, but because she didn't trust her voice not to shake. The bus engine roared to life. And just like that, there was no turning back. Arrival, the place where weakness dies. The gates appeared before them like something out of a nightmare. Tall iron absolute. Above them a sign read, United States Army Training Facility. The bus doors opened. Cold air rushed in like a warning. They stepped out. And that's when they saw him. A drill instructor stood perfectly still, staring at them like they were already failures. Then he screamed, "Welcome to the United States Army." Every recruit flinched. He didn't stop. "From this moment on, your name, your past, your excuses mean nothing." His voice cut through the air like a blade. Emily felt her chest tighten. Then came the final words. "You either become something here, or you disappear." The first command, no time to think. "Drop your bags." Everyone obeyed instantly. "Run." No explanation. No warm-up. Just chaos. The group surged forward into formation, boots hitting the ground like thunder. Emily ran too. At first she kept up. Then the pace increased. Then the shouting started. "Faster. You call that running? Move." Her lungs burned within minutes. Her legs began to feel heavier than her entire body. But she kept going. Not because she was strong, but because stopping felt worse. The breaking point comes early. 10 minutes. That's all it took for the illusion to crack. Emily's breathing turned sharp. Her vision blurred at the edges. Sweat dripped into her eyes, stinging. Her foot caught uneven ground. And she fell. Hard. Mud exploded around her face and uniform. For a second, everything went silent. Then came laughter. Not from everyone, but enough. The drill instructor's voice cut through it instantly. "Carter, on your feet." She tried. Her arms shook. Her body refused. Something inside her whispered, "Stay down, it's easier." And for a split second, she almost believed it. The memory that pulled her back. Then it happened. A flash. Not gentle, not soft. Her father's voice, sharp, real, alive in her mind. "If you fall, you don't ask permission to stand again." Her fingers dug into the mud. Her arms trembled violently. Her teeth clenched so hard it hurt. And then she pushed. Her body rose. Not gracefully. Not confidently. But completely. A few recruits stopped laughing. Something about that moment didn't feel normal. It felt like refusal in its purest form. The first enemy isn't the training. Training wasn't the hardest part. Not yet. The hardest part was the people. The looks. The judgment. The silent ranking happening between every recruit. That night, the barracks felt colder than the outside world. Metal bunk beds lined the room like cages. No one spoke loudly. But everyone was watching everyone. Emily sat on her bed, cleaning mud off her hands slowly. A shadow fell across her. Sergeant Blake, one of the strongest female recruits. Confident, sharp-eyed, already respected. She looked at Emily like she was analyzing a mistake. "You fell too early today," Blake said. Emily didn't respond. Blake leaned slightly closer. "In here, weakness spreads faster than injury." A pause. Then the final line. "And I don't tolerate weakness near me." She walked away. Emily stayed still. But something inside her shifted. Not fear. Not anger. Something quieter. Something forming. Night silence, the real training begins. Lights out came early. But sleep didn't. Around her, recruits shifted, whispered, doubted themselves in silence. Emily lay on her bunk staring at the ceiling. Her body hurt everywhere. But her mind hurt more. Because now she understood something important. This wasn't just training. It was a place designed to erase who you were and rebuild you into something else. If you survived. Her fingers closed again around the dog tag. "I don't know who I'm becoming," she whispered. A long pause. Then softer. "But I know I can't go back." Final cliffhanger of part 1. Outside, wind hit the barracks walls. Inside, silence pressed down like pressure. Emily closed her eyes. And for the first time since arriving, she didn't think about quitting. She thought about lasting. And somewhere across the room, Sergeant Blake watched her quietly. As if she already knew. This girl wasn't finished. Not even close. Morning didn't arrive gently at the training base. It arrived like a command. A siren tore through the barracks at 4:30 hours, sharp enough to cut sleep into pieces. Lights snapped on instantly, exposing tired faces, tangled sheets and bodies that had barely recovered from yesterday. "Yuppie, yuppie, yuppie, move." The drill instructor's voice didn't sound human in the morning. It sounded like pressure itself. Emily Carter's eyes opened instantly. Her body didn't want to move. But she moved anyway. Because she had learned something yesterday. Here, hesitation is punished faster than failure. The first lesson of the day, pain has no respect. Outside, the air was colder than the night before. A row of recruits stood in formation, uniforms stiff, boots still not fully broken in. Sergeant Blake stood somewhere ahead, perfect posture, calm breathing, like the cold didn't exist. Emily stood 2 rows behind her. Still not noticed. Still not respected. The drill instructor paced slowly. "Yesterday was easy," he said. No one believed him. "Today," he continued, "we remove what's left of your comfort." A pause. Then the word dropped. Drills. Endless physical cycle begins. They ran. Not once. Not in a simple loop. But in cycles that never felt like they ended. Sprint, drop, push-ups, carry weight, sprint again. Emily tried to keep pace. At first she could. Then the rhythm started breaking her. Her breathing turned uneven. Her arms shook during push-ups. Her legs felt like they were no longer responding properly. "Carter, your form is trash." She lowered again. Mud touched her knees. A second later. Again. No rest. No pause. Just repetition until failure becomes normal. The moment she realizes something terrifying. Halfway through the drills, something changed inside Emily. It wasn't physical pain. It was mental exhaustion, so deep it started distorting time. She looked around. Everyone was struggling. Even the confident ones. Even Sergeant Blake, though barely. And that realization hit harder than any command. No one is strong here. Not yet. Only surviving. Blake steps in. During a short transition between drills, Blake walked past Emily. Slow, controlled, observing. "You're still too slow," she said quietly. Emily didn't respond. Blake stopped beside her. "Let me guess," Blake continued. "You think effort is enough." Emily's jaw tightened. Blake leaned slightly closer. "In here, effort doesn't matter. Only adaptation does." Then she walked away. But the words stayed behind like a warning. The water break that wasn't a break. They were finally allowed water. But even that felt like part of the punishment. Recruits rushed toward containers like they had been starved for hours. Emily drank fast. Too fast. A drill instructor noticed. "Stop drinking like you're in a restaurant." She froze instantly. The bottle was taken from her hand. "Control yourself, or the system controls you." Emily stepped back quietly. Her throat still burned with thirst. But she didn't ask again. She learned quickly. Even relief here has rules. The breaking point comes again. The next drill was worse. Weighted carries. Long distance. No pauses. No excuses. Emily's pack felt heavier than yesterday, like the weight increased on purpose. Her shoulders burned within minutes. Her steps became uneven. Her vision started narrowing. A recruit beside her dropped to one knee. Then another. The instructor didn't react. He only shouted, "Keep moving." Emily kept moving. But something inside her started cracking again. Not loudly. Quietly. Like pressure building inside glass. Flashback, the memory that hurts more than pain. Mid-run, her mind slipped. Not into imagination. Into memory. Her father again. Standing in uniform. Not smiling. Just watching her tie her shoes as a child. "You think strength is something you feel?" he had asked. She shook her head. He crouched down. "Strength is what you do when everything inside you says stop." Back to present. Her breath hitched. Her legs nearly collapsed. But she didn't stop. First real collapse of the day. Halfway through the carry drill. Emily fell. Not a stumble. A full collapse. Her knees hit the ground. Her pack dragged her backward slightly. Mud clung instantly. Silence didn't come. Laughter didn't come either. Only expectation. The drill instructor walked over slowly. "You done?" he asked. Emily's breath was shaking. She didn't answer. A long pause. Then, "Get up." No emotion. Just command. Emily tried. Once. Twice. Her body refused. For the first time, she felt something worse than pain. Failure in front of everyone. Blake watches without intervening. From a distance, Sergeant Blake observed. No expression. No sympathy. No judgment spoken out loud. Just analysis. Emily finally pushed herself up. Slow. Unstable. But she stood. Blake turned away slightly, almost disappointed. Not because Emily fell, but because she almost stayed down. Lunch, a different kind of pressure. Food wasn't comfort. It was fuel. And even fuel had rules. Emily sat at a long table with recruits eating quickly, quietly. No conversation. Only exhaustion. A recruit across from her whispered, "You okay?" Emily paused, then nodded, even though she was. Because here, honesty felt like weakness. Blake's warning becomes clearer. After lunch, Blake finally sat near Emily, not as comfort but as pressure. "You're still surviving on emotion," she said. Emily looked at her. Blake continued, "That doesn't last long here." Emily finally spoke softly. "Then what does?" Blake's answer came instantly. Discipline that replaces emotion completely. A pause. Then, "Or you break." She stood up and walked away again. Afternoon drill, the system tests limits. The afternoon session was designed differently. Not physically harder. Mentally draining. Repetition under exhaustion. Commands that changed every minute. No rhythm. No predictability. Emily struggled to adapt. Every mistake meant restarting. Every restart meant more exhaustion. Her mind started slowing down. Not confusion. Fatigue. Deep fatigue. The almost quitting moment. At one point, Emily stood still. For maybe 3 seconds too long. The drill instructor noticed immediately. "Why are you stopping?" Emily blinked. Her body felt disconnected. For a moment, she almost said, "I can't." But something stopped her. Not courage. Not strength. Memory. Her father again. So instead, she whispered, "I'm still here." And resumed. Blake notices the chain. Later that evening, during final formation, Blake watched Emily again. Something was different. Not stronger. Not better. But refusing to disappear. That unsettled Blake more than failure ever did. Because failure was predictable. Refusal was not. Night falls, the weight of day 2. Back in the barracks, bodies collapsed onto bunks. No one spoke. Everyone hurt. Emily lay still. Her muscles screamed. Her mind felt numb. But something inside her wasn't empty. It was forming shape. Slowly. Like pressure turning into structure. Final cliffhanger of part 2. As lights dimmed, Emily stared at the ceiling again. But this time, her thought was different. Not "I can't survive." Not "I want to quit." Instead, if I survive this version of me, I won't stay the same. Across the room, Sergeant Blake opened her eyes briefly in the darkness. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if Emily Carter was breaking or building something dangerous. The third morning didn't feel like morning anymore. It felt like continuation of pain. Emily Carter woke up before the alarm again, but this time not from fear or habit. from exhaustion so deep her body never truly slept. Her eyes opened slowly. Her muscles were already sore before she moved. And for a brief second, she just stared at the ceiling, wondering how many more days a person could break without disappearing completely. Then the siren screamed, and the question became irrelevant. Because the world didn't wait for answers here. Formation, something has changed. Outside, the air was heavier. Not weather heavy, pressure heavy. Recruits stood in formation, but something was different today. Fewer confident faces. More blank expressions. The system was doing its job. Breaking certainty first. Emily stood in her place, slightly steadier than yesterday. Not stronger, just less shocked. Sergeant Blake noticed immediately. Her eyes moved across the formation, then paused on Emily. A longer pause than before, like she was recalculating something. The drill instructor introduces elimination training. The drill instructor stepped forward. No shouting at first. That was worse. Silence meant seriousness. Today, he said calmly, we remove hesitation permanently. A pause. Then the word dropped. Elimination drills. A few recruits shifted uneasily. He continued. You fail a command, you repeat. You repeat, you break. You break, you get replaced. No emotion. Just system logic. Emily felt her stomach tighten. Not fear of pain. Fear of exhaustion without end. The drill that doesn't end. The first phase began instantly. Obstacle course. Timed. Weighted. No recovery breaks. Emily ran with the group. At first she matched pace. Then the course changed. Walls higher. Ropes longer. Burden heavier. Her breathing sharpened. Her hand slipped on the rope once. She almost fell. Almost. But she caught herself. Behind her, someone didn't. A crash. A shout. But the system didn't care. Keep moving. Blake enters the field. Halfway through the course, Sergeant Blake appeared at a checkpoint. Not participating. Observing. Waiting. Emily passed her once. Blake said nothing. But her eyes followed. That silence felt heavier than instruction. Emily pushed forward. Her arms burned during the rope climb. Her legs shook on landing. But she didn't fall. Not yet. First real psychological pressure test. At the final obstacle, recruits had to carry injured weight dummies across distance. Simulating rescue. But under time pressure. Emily lifted hers. Heavy. Unbalanced. Immediately, her posture shifted. The drill instructor shouted, "You think soldiers wait for comfort?" No. No one answered. Because answer didn't matter. Only movement did. Collapse number 3. Mid-carry, Emily's knee buckled. This time she didn't fully fall. But she dropped to one knee. Mud soaked her uniform again. Her arms trembled violently. For a second she stayed there. Breathing hard. Not thinking. Just existing. The instructor walked closer. Stand up. No reaction. Carter stand. Still nothing. That silence lasted longer than usual. And for the first time, the system waited. Something inside her changes. Emily's mind went strangely quiet. Not blank. Focused. She looked at the dummy. Then at her hands. Then at the ground. And something clicked. Not strength. Not motivation. Understanding. This wasn't about being able. It was about refusing the moment she stopped. She inhaled. slow, deep, and stood. Not fast, not dramatic, but deliberate. Behind her, someone whispered. She got up again. Blake heard it. Blake finally speaks directly. After the drill during transition, Blake approached Emily. Close enough this time that it wasn't observation anymore. It was confrontation. "You're still relying on recovery," Blake said. Emily looked at her. Blake continued. "In here, recovery is a luxury, not a right." Emily responded quietly. "Then how do you survive it?" Blake didn't answer immediately. "Then, you don't survive it." A pause. "You become it." And she walked away. Evening drill, the breaking of identity. The next phase was worse. Not physically harder. Emotionally stripping. Recruits were made to repeat commands under verbal pressure. Mistakes were punished with repetition and public correction. Emily made a mistake. One small hesitation. And it triggered repetition. Again. And again. And again. Her voice cracked mid-command once. The drill instructor stopped everything. Reset. The entire group had to restart. Because of her. Pressure shifted instantly. Eyes turned. Blame didn't need words. The moment of isolation. Emily stood slightly apart after that. Not physically, but emotionally. She could feel it. Distance forming. Not because others hated her, but because survival creates separation. Blake watched from far again. This time with something different in her eyes. Not judgment. Curiosity. Night training extension, no rest rule. That night, instead of rest, they trained again. Night drills. Low visibility. Fatigue multiplied. Emily could barely feel her legs anymore. Her body was functioning on delayed response. But she kept moving. Step by step. Command by command. Something inside her had shifted. She wasn't reacting anymore. She was enduring with awareness. A private breakdown nobody sees. During a short pause near a wall, Emily leaned slightly. Not collapsing. Just enough to breathe. Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. For a second, she closed them. And everything hit her at once. Pain, exhaustion, memory, loss. Her father. Her life before. Everything she gave up. A tear formed but didn't fall. Because she forced it back. Not out of pride. Out of necessity. She whispered, "I can't stop here," and pushed off the wall. Blake's first sign of respect hidden. From a distance, Blake saw it. Not the breakdown. The recovery from it. She didn't react outwardly. But something inside her shifted slightly. Because most recruits either broke completely or pretended to be fine. Emily did neither. She adapted mid-break. That was rare. Dangerously rare. Final drill, the test of continuation. The final exercise of the day was simple in design, but brutal in execution. Continuous movement until failure. No endpoint announced. Just command repetition. Emily kept going. Minutes blurred. Then hours. Her body stopped responding with emotion. Only function remained. Run. Lift. Move. Repeat. The point of almost disappearance. At one moment, Emily's mind drifted again. Not into memory, but into emptiness. She almost forgot where she was. Only motion kept her anchored. And in that strange state, something terrifying happened. She stopped thinking about pain. Completely. That's when she realized, this is how soldiers are made. Not by strength, but by erasing hesitation. Blake's final observation of the day. As drills ended, Blake stood watching recruits return. Emily was not at the front, not at the back, just in the middle. Still moving, still upright, still not gone. Blake's expression softened slightly, almost invisible, but present. She didn't break, she murmured quietly, then corrected herself. Not yet. Final cliffhanger of Part 3. That night, Emily lay down in silence. Her body finally allowed rest, but her mind didn't. For the first time, she wasn't asking if she could survive tomorrow. She was asking something else. How far can I go before I stop being who I was? Across the barracks, Blake stared at the ceiling too. And somewhere between exhaustion and respect, a rivalry was no longer forming. It was evolving. The final phase of training didn't announce itself with warning. It arrived with silence, a silence that felt wrong. Emily Carter woke up before the siren again, but this time her body didn't feel like it was resisting life anymore. It felt adjusted. Still tired, still sore, still human, but no longer confused by pain. That was new. Outside, the sky was still dark. The barracks were still quiet, but something in the atmosphere had changed, like the entire base was waiting for something final. Emily sat up slowly. Her hands didn't shake today. That realization stayed with her longer than the pain ever did. The final week begins. The drill instructor didn't shout when they gathered. That alone made everyone nervous. He simply stood in front of them and said, "Everything before this was preparation." A pause. Then, "Now we see who belongs here." No dramatic tone. No extra explanation. Just truth. Behind him, trucks were already lined up. Not for transport. For selection. Emily felt her stomach tighten, but not in fear anymore. In focus. Blake does look away this time. Sergeant Blake stood among the senior trainees watching. But today she wasn't distant. She was present. Her eyes found Emily immediately. And stayed there. Emily noticed. This time she didn't look away. Something had changed between them over the past days. Not friendship. Not hostility. Something sharper. Recognition forming through pressure. The final field exercise, the collapse zone. They called it the collapse zone. No one explained it further. They didn't need to. The terrain ahead told everything. Mud fields, weighted obstacles, distance markers disappearing into fog. And one rule. Keep moving until you are removed or you finish. Emily stepped forward with the group. Her boots sank slightly into the ground. This wasn't training anymore. This was evaluation. Final evaluation. Phase 1 controlled chaos. The drill began instantly. No countdown. No rhythm. Just command explosion. Move. DOWN. Carry. Run. The environment felt alive in a hostile way. Emily ran with the group, adjusting quickly. Not reacting anymore. Anticipating. That was the first difference. Her mind wasn't lagging behind commands. It was meeting them early. Blake enters the field, not as observer. Halfway through the course, something unexpected happened. Sergeant Blake entered the field. Not as instructor. As competitor. A final stress test. Whispers spread instantly among recruits. Even Emily felt the shift. Blake didn't look at anyone else. Only forward. Then she ran. Fast. Controlled. Perfect form. A living standard. The test had changed. Now it wasn't just survival. It was comparison. Emily pushes beyond enough. Emily pushed harder. Her breathing stayed controlled. Her steps became deliberate. She wasn't chasing Blake. Not yet. She was maintaining herself. That was new. Before she survived. Now she stabilized under pressure. But Blake wasn't slowing. And that meant something important. The system was pushing limits again. The first real mental break test. Mid-course, Emily hit a wall section. Heavy climb. Loose grips. Fatigue multiplier. She climbed once. Slipped slightly. Recovered. Second attempt. Better. Behind her, others were failing fast. Noise of collapse, frustration, commands. But Emily stayed focused. Then she heard it. Blake's voice, not loud. Clear. Don't rely on recovery, control it. Emily paused for half a second. Then adjusted her grip. Changed technique mid-climb. And continued. Blake notices the shift clearly now. At the top of the obstacle, Blake reached before her. She turned slightly. Looked down. Emily arrived seconds later. No celebration. No exhaustion display. Just arrival. Blake said quietly, "You stopped reacting." Emily answered, "I stopped wasting time on it." A pause. That was the first real exchange without tension. Only understanding. Then Blake nodded once. And moved on. Phase 2, forced exhaustion loop. The second phase was designed to break rhythm again. Repetition circuits. Sprint right arrow, lift right arrow, crawl right arrow, repeat. No rest. Emily felt fatigue return, but differently now. It didn't confuse her anymore. It passed through her like weather. Still painful, but not disruptive. She continued moving. Step after step. No hesitation gaps. That was the difference now. The moment of maximum pressure. At one point, Emily's leg gave a warning signal. Not injury. Warning fatigue collapse. She slowed for a fraction. Then stopped herself mentally. She adjusted pace instead of stopping. That decision mattered more than strength. Because stopping was no longer instinct. Continuing was. Blake and Emily parallel run. For a short stretch, Blake ran parallel to Emily. No words. Just movement. Side by side. The field noise faded slightly in Emily's perception. Only two rhythms remained. Blake's precision. Emily's adaptation. Neither dominating. Both existing. Then Blake increased speed slightly. Testing. Emily matched. That was enough. Blake looked forward again. Approval without expression. Final obstacle, the endurance gate. The final structure stood ahead. A tall endurance gate with timed clearance. Heavy gear required. Full exhaustion state. This was where most recruits failed. Not from inability. From accumulated braking. Emily approached it slowly. Her breathing steady. Her mind quiet. For the first time in the entire